Hey guys, welcome to Juicy Tea, where I read out the best stories on Reddit, so you don't have to. The funny, shocking, and satisfyingly juicy. Today is Antiwork Monday, with a few stories that will help you get through the week. As per a subscriber suggestion, I'm trialling background music in my videos this week. Please let me know what you guys think. Our first post comes from MaliciousCompliance subreddit, posted by ThrowPandaAwayno. No help for corporate? I'll just leave when scheduled. I work at a large retailer and there's a corporate visit coming up. Big deal to the higher-ups at my local branch, and the store must look perfect. For reference, I'm the only employee in my entire department, roughly 1,300 product placements, and the company won't hire any more help because I can do it alone. Today I was busting my ass to not only get all my normal duties done, but to also make sure everything was absolutely perfect for corporate. I decided to stay an extra hour or two, not taking my 2 paid breaks. As I'm working, one of my bosses comes up, asking me to do a few other tasks which I just didn't have time to do. I politely told him everything I still had left to do, and advised that I could complete those tasks as well, if someone can help me out for an hour. That someone could have been one of the managers, by the way. I was told no one can help, and these tasks need to get done so the store looks good for corporate, and then they walked away. So I said F it and took my paid breaks. I then continued working as hard as possible to get what I knew absolutely needed to get done, primary product order. I left at the time I was scheduled to leave. I didn't clean, straighten up the department, or refill things which had already been sold. On my way out, I told my manager I was leaving because my shift was over and I had things to do. I said he should probably make sure someone cleans up my department tonight, or it's not going to look too good for corporate tomorrow. He just looked at me with bewilderment for a moment, probably because I've never done anything like this before, and then told me to have a good night and he'd see me Monday. Why does this place have multiple managers but only one worker? Our next post comes from ScarRolletTech. You want me to give you the key on Saturday? Sure, I will. So this happened when I was a teenager, around 18 or 19, and I worked for a small bakery in my town. It's worth mentioning that I'm a woman. The owner was the worst kind of man I've ever met. He had no business being around people, let alone managing employees. I was a key holder and the sole cashier of the store from really early on. I was left alone to run the place and close it every day. He only gave us half-hour breaks for 10-hour shifts. He was racist and homophobic, and frequently made fun of his employees, so his buddies could laugh at us when they visited. I can go on and on about this man, but the best summary I can give is I saw 2 people quit in their first day while working for him. I told him I was leaving 3 weeks in, and gave him a week's notice. He, of course, complained about how unprofessional I, the teenager, was being. I also specifically told him I would not work the next Saturday. My last day would be Friday. Now, I didn't want to work Saturday because Saturday was sandwich day, the day the entire building stops making cookies and pies and makes sandwiches so they can be shipped off for other businesses to sell. It was always the most stressful day because there was too much work and too few people to do it. Also, because the owner, instead of lounging from the store, had to work with me, and he had no respect for personal space. How close he insisted on getting bordered on sexual harassment. No matter how many times I brought up how uncomfortable I was, he ignored or interrupted me. So I didn't want to work Saturday. Well, in my last week, I reminded him of this several times, but he never seemed to get it. On my last day, I asked him when I should give my key back. He interrupted me before I could offer Friday and said at the end of my shift on Saturday. I chose not to correct him, so I didn't. I locked up as usual on Friday, slept in the next morning and wandered down to the bakery to give my key back. I walked in and it was chaos. Customers were lined up and an employee who usually works in the back was trying to man the cash register and failing. And the owner had gotten off his ass for once and was rushing around making hundreds of sandwiches, red in the face and swearing under his breath. I waved at him, but he made a point to look away from me. So I put my key on the counter and walked out. He actually had to sell the bakery a few months later, something about running out of people willing to work. I know I wasn't the catalyst for that particular development, but it was nice to know I helped. Our next post comes from Bros09. I'm a senior engineer and the lower level engineers make 20k more than I do. Background: I'm a senior engineer making 95k at a company I've been at for 4 years. I was one of the first engineers in their US office, so I'm often that person people come to with problems that no one else in the company can solve. Today, I found out that a lot of newer engineers that are one level beneath me are making 115k. I have double the workload, the stress and tenure, yet they're making so much more than me. The manager I had throughout didn't like me either, and he made that abundantly clear. Every year, he'd give me a 4% raise and act like that was such a stretch for him to give, even though I'm one of the proven top performers. 3 months ago, the manager was promoted to director, and I received a new boss, who is great actually. However, I'm not sure how much the new boss can do, considering who she reports to. Any advice for anyone going through this? I truly love working at the company and have a lot of pride in my work, but I feel so cheated. Edit: had a meeting with my manager today. She didn't take it seriously enough, so I told them they have 1 week to match what I think I deserve, or I'm leaving on the spot. This sucks. Even your nice new manager is trying to play with you. She knows how much you're worth. They can afford it. It's not a stretch, or they wouldn't be paying the new inexperienced guys so much. Pay rises aren't about cost. Their aim is to keep you with the smallest increase possible. This is what employers mean by wanting loyalty. People like OP, who stick around for years despite not getting the pay bumps they deserve. They hate disloyal workers, who jump from job to job, getting big pay rises each time. But if they were loyal themselves, they'd give you the pay rise that matches the going rate for your skills, so you wouldn't need to jump just to get paid what you're worth. And they wouldn't need to find new talent or retrain someone. Loyalty should always go both ways, otherwise you're just being taken advantage of. Posted by Tweedless Can. Wants me to work overtime, but won't pay for it. I'm in the midst of leaving a truly terrible job. I've only been there a year, but I began noticing issues after the first month. Now, this is in healthcare and we work with very vulnerable people. I've seen some horrendous ethical issues from both employees and my employer. For example, permitting clinicians to perform tasks they're not trained in and recommending treatments that are basically pseudoscience. Not to mention, my employer has no respect for boundaries or work-life balance, which is essential in this field if you want to avoid burnout. They have horrible work-life balance, time management, and organisational skills themselves, leading to them being behind on all work constantly, with over 2,000 emails sitting in their inbox. This also resulted in much of my work being delayed, and clients getting upset because they're waiting for things that my employer needs to do. Because of this incompetence, I get constant emails and texts asking me to work on days off, or my employer texting at 8 PM or 7 AM and expecting a reply. I've set very clear boundaries from the start that I don't work outside my hours, and I've also raised concerns about ethics and competency issues, which resulted in my employer becoming defensive and emotional and changing nothing. Since giving my notice, my employer has been pushing boundaries even more. So, being the compliant human I am, and because I do need to wrap things up that I've been waiting for my employer to get to for months, I began responding, and including every single work-related communication outside my hours, or requests for small tasks that I need to complete on my off days, as hours worked. I've banked up some nice overtime. Last week, the employer sent an email saying that I'm no longer allowed to work overtime, and every hour worked overtime will be banked as vacation time instead. I don't want that, because if I'm working overtime, I deserve to be paid for it. So I immediately stopped responding to anything after hours, or on off days, and I've been only working 8 hours on my scheduled days. The frustration and passive aggression coming from my employer since I started doing this is unmatched. Truly, they should get an award for the snarky, condescending emails and texts they've been sending me. I only have a few days left, and I'll be filing an ethics complaint for the many egregious things I've seen once I'm out of there. It's what they deserve, and I can't wait. Wage theft sucks, but hey, at least they were nice enough to put it in writing for you. That will be convenient when you go to report them. Why do they think you'll work even harder and for free when they know you're leaving anyway? Posted by Reasonable Custody. I hope you get paid as much as you feel like you deserve. About a year ago, I was speaking to my boss about how hard inflation had been hitting me. I was speaking to him about if there was a possibility of getting a raise due to the additional responsibilities I now have, or I might have to look for a new job. My boss proceeded to tell me good luck with my search and he hopes I get paid as much as I feel like I deserve. Now I'm working a job that pays me almost 50% more than what I was getting paid, with less responsibilities, less stress, while they're struggling to replace me. I hope they can find an employee with skills they feel like they deserve. Our next post comes from Linda Bolchi, 69. Advice for we don't take breaks. I just transferred to the ER of my hospital. I'm a nurse assistant. As with most hospital jobs, the night shift employees typically don't take breaks. So when I asked the person orientating me when she's going on her break, she said, "We don't take breaks here." Of course, I don't like that because they're definitely taking that half hour from our paychecks. Now, a lot of staff here are agency, so maybe they make enough to not care, but I do not. My first thought was to say, well, I do, but I also don't want to be that person, especially on my first night. But I also don't want to normalize working for free. It's the principle of the thing, corny as that sounds. Edit. Thank you guys. I knew the right thing, I just needed the encouragement. Tonight, I'm going to casually ask the manager if it's documented that we work through breaks, just to make sure the time isn't taken out of our paychecks. So either I'll get paid or she'll tell me to take my breaks. Update 2. First, thank you all for pushing me to do/say something. I want to answer a few questions. We're hourly, not salaried. I work part-time, and the floor doesn't get crazy enough to where I can say it's dangerous for us to not go on breaks. My first decision was to speak to the manager and casually just make sure that I'm being paid for the 12 hours and not being docked for a 30-minute break. Since I'm brand new to the floor, I still don't know the best way to speak with or approach any of the managers, and I'd like to avoid any sort of confrontation until I've established myself, at least among my co-workers. Some of you guys suggested I select cancel lunch break or something to that effect when I clock in or out. I did not know this was even possible, and I want to especially thank the people who suggested this. I did just that when I clocked out this morning after last night's shift, and I'm going to make sure I do that every time I leave a shift. As soon as I get my paycheck, I'm going to examine the hours and confirm that they did not take it out anyway. If they do, I'll have the confidence to confront my manager, because that would have been direct tampering with my hours and documented wage theft. The fact that the supervisor didn't mention the cancel lunch break mechanic on the clock out machine is super dodgy. She was literally asked about breaks. And it's crazy how common this "we don't take breaks here" thing is. When I first started working, I thought I just got unlucky, but it seems to be a widespread problem. There's such a crazy power imbalance that people are too scared to enforce their legal rights. I feel like worker rights should be something taught in schools. I mean, I don't know anyone who hasn't experienced wage theft or had their worker rights violated in the first few years of their working lives. School is supposed to prepare you for working life, so it's crazy that things like doing taxes, managing money and worker rights aren't taught. But art is. No shade on art, but priorities? Employers take advantage of young people because they either don't know their rights or don't have the confidence to stand up for themselves. And even if they do get caught, there's no real consequences, just a slap on the wrist, if anything. So to any young people listening, know your rights, stand up for yourselves, and no, this isn't normal. Remember, they need you more than you need them. I post new content every day, so subscribe for more juicy tea.